What a dangerous web we weave when we practice to deceive. Today, what we're doing is we're talking about the lies of the alcoholic. What are the lies that we tell ourselves and other people to continue drinking? What are some of the things that go on in your mind before you take that first drink or after you've taken that 50th drink? Are you lying to yourself about actually being an alcoholic? Are you lying to yourself so you can continue drinking as if nothing is wrong, even though your life might be falling into shambles and you don't know what to do other than quitting drinking? Well, today we might have the answer for you, because Terry and I have struggled with lots of different lies that we told ourselves to stay drunk and stay alcoholic. Now, these weren't really helping us out, even though we thought they were. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how that works. Why did we lie to ourselves? Why would you lie to yourself? How does that even work? So today we're going to talk about denial. We're going to talk about the 5 lies alcoholics tell themselves so that they can keep drinking, and a whole lot more. So if you're struggling and you're out there and you don't know what to do with your drinking and you feel like you might need some help, this is the show to watch. So Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I don't lie to myself anymore. I certainly did when I was drinking. And, a lot of these lies kept me drinking and kept me in that spiral down to the bottom. And I just, I didn't even see that I was lying. So I'm going to share with you 5 lies that I told myself. This is what I see a lot of other sober alcoholics, practicing alcoholics, and all that. They tell themselves daily, several times a day. And, it keeps them stuck in the bottle and keeps them drinking. And so I'll just get right into it. The first one for me, and this was big because this was a daily thing, and that was that I could stop anytime, and really more to it than that was, I'm going to stop tomorrow. You don't know how many times that I would take that walk, because I didn't want to drive drunk. I take that walk to the liquor store, and it would be, okay, this is the last bottle. I'm going to quit tomorrow, or I'm going to quit when this bottle's gone. That's it. Or I'm going to make this bottle last for more than 2 days, whatever it was. And that was a huge lie for me, and that kept me going a long time. And that's what I see so many people do. And I'm telling you, if you have a problem with alcohol, why not stop now? Now is the time to stop. Obviously, you need to go to a doctor, but why wait until tomorrow? Right now, alcohol is doing damage. It's not doing any good. Alcohol does not have any benefits for us whatsoever. And why keep going with it? And for me, that's what I had to finally realize was tomorrow is too late. I need to stop now. And for me, I was forced into it, sort of, as far as medical conditions go. And I was forced into sobriety. And it was a matter of maintaining it after I was able to get through the detox. But that was the biggest lie. And I don't know about you, Marcus. Did you tell yourself this all the time, or maybe not so much? How about you?
Yeah, I would tell myself that, I really deep down wanted to quit and I just didn't know how, or I kind of lied to myself about the severity of my alcoholism and how it was affecting. I thought it was more a personal self-help, self-development problem rather than a chemical problem. And I didn't realize what was going on, and so I would lie to myself so that I can continue drinking, because that was the only thing I knew that kept me what I thought was sane at the time, which later I learned in a mental hospital that was not the case. I was not sane. And I think that what happens is we lie to ourselves so that we can cope, right? It's like a coping mechanism. Like if you, after a loved one passes, you tell yourself a different story about what their life was like, usually, right? It's a little bit dramatized or glorified or whatever it is. Or maybe something else happens and you glorify that or dramatize that. And with our drinking, I think that one of the big lies is that we romanticize it. We think that we are different people when we drink than we actually are. I thought I was going to have no fun when I got sober because I thought I was just a rip-roaring good time when I was drinking, when in fact it was the exact opposite. When I drank, I was sad, and sure, I would be the life of the party for 15 minutes till I fell on my face and had to be escorted out. But it was something where I didn't see that. And I remember, Terry, remember they talked about this in rehab, where they said you have a built-in forgetter that forgets all the bad stuff and only remembers the good. And it's kind
Absolutely.
of like an abusive relationship where you're making excuses for abuse. Oh, he's not that bad. He really didn't mean it. He had a hard day. She did this. She acts this way. I had it coming. Maybe I should be. When in actuality, it's no, there's an abusive person, and abuse is abuse, and it needs to leave. Same with alcoholism. Alcoholism is alcoholism, and it needs to leave. It doesn't. It might have a good time. Terry talks all the time about riding in the wine bus, right? He'd get in a big wine bus and go down to the wine country. And while that might be a glorified time, I would venture to say that if he compared that with the sitting alone and drinking and the detox and the anxiety and the hell that alcoholism is, it's like, yeah, would I like to go to the wine country and have different beverages? Yeah. Do I wish wine had no alcohol in it? Yeah, that would be fun. But I'm an alcoholic, and the good is far, far smaller than the bad.
Yeah, yeah, and well, Timberwolf said his question became, if not now, when? And yeah, that's hits the nail right on the head with this one.
Yep.
Is yeah, why not stop now? And I tell you, you brought up the wine bus, and yes, that was fun. But then I've spent my sober years cycling through the wine country. Hey, it's just as beautiful, if not even more beautiful, when you're on a bicycle, as long as you ride before the drunks get on the road. But but that's beside the point. It's there's we could go through life sober. It's great. But that was definitely one of the biggest lies that I told myself, and I see a lot of people telling themselves that they can stop anytime, they're going to stop tomorrow. I thought I could stop anytime, but it ended up being controlling my drinking for just a short amount of time until I was right back to where I was, and that was way too much. So the second one is, and it's kind of got a few things to it, but that alcohol helps me relax or sleep or forget my problems, and on top of that, for me it was, and this kind of goes back to number one as well, is how am I going to be able to deal with life without alcohol? And that was a big fear for me, is what's life going to be like without alcohol? Am I just going to be sitting at home watching TV, being bummed out that I don't get to have fun with anybody anymore? Because all of my friends were drinking friends, and usually when we went out, we were drinking, and that was a big one for me. And that fear, I see it keeps a lot of people from making that step into sobriety, and it's difficult. I don't blame you. It's for me. Um, I had to basically give up these drinking friends, at least for a while, when I got sober. I mean, they went away. Life did get a little bit more boring until I learned how to enjoy life without alcohol. And now I can do all those things that I used to do. And I do all those things I used to do other than go to like bars and drinking situations, but I can still do those things. I can go to the beach, I can go to a concert. I can do all these things. I'm free. And actually, I'm more free now because I don't have to think about that drive home. I don't have to. I'm sober. I can drive. I can be safe, and I can have intelligent conversations with people. And that was a big one for me. The other one is I used to think I needed the alcohol to sleep. And I would have a bunch of alcohol, pass out. When you pass out from alcohol, you're not really sleeping. For me, I was always tired the next day. And that's because I didn't get into that REM sleep, because alcohol doesn't allow you to do that. And I thought alcohol would make me relax and forget about my problems. And, um, yeah, it did allow me to relax and forget my problems temporarily. But then those situations would come back the next day. And because I was just not thinking about them or thinking a way through a particular issue that I might be challenged with, um, those problems came back worse than before. because my mind wasn't subconsciously working on this situation. How can I get through this? What's the next step I need to take? These are the sort of things that alcohol would push down in my thought. They'd push my thought process down, and I wouldn't be able to get through these situations. I'd become more stressed with alcohol. And when I sobered up, I was able to accomplish these or take care of these problems in a much more productive way. And that's what it did for me. And for you, Marcus, how about you?
Yeah, I think that, looking at what happened when I drank and what I was thinking about a fun life, I think, a lot of that was because of the alcohol commercials. You watch them and it's like, oh, you're having a fun life. Me and my daughter were watching The Simpsons last night, and the whole episode was about that and how they, market to drunk people, and that is their target. Like, hey, this is going to be fun. When in actuality, alcoholism is not fun. It might be fun to drink and everything like that, sometimes, debatable. But I think what's happening is, a lot of people look at it, and I think yours was, you were talking about sleep, and a lot of people look at it and attribute calmness and relaxing and sleep with the alcohol. And I did the same thing with anxiety. I would go somewhere and I know I was going to be anxious, and so I would drink, and 15 minutes later, my anxiety dropped. Well, once I got sober, I had to realize that, okay, I have to go in this without alcohol. So I had been telling myself the lie that I needed alcohol for anxiety. And so I muscled up the courage. I went somewhere, and I noticed 15 minutes after I got there, the anxiety dropped anyway. I was like, wait a minute. For years, I was telling myself that alcohol was what was dropping the anxiety, and it wasn't. For years, I told myself alcohol was what made me able to sleep, but it wasn't. And it was funny because you don't really realize these things. You don't realize that, okay, now that I'm like 40 something, I realize like, oh, hey, I can't have coffee past like 9 o'clock. I'll be up all night, right? Now, you don't really realize that until you're removed from it. And, when I was drinking, I'd have coffee and alcohol pretty much all day, all kinds of stuff, right? And it was just a mess. And I would attribute all these lies to alcohol that weren't really true. Anxiety, sleep, all this stuff. Oh, it's a help. It's helping me. Like, I think one of the biggest lies was told by many therapists, and it is that alcoholism and alcohol is self-medicating. Alcohol is not self-medicating. Alcohol is not medicine. So for someone with a credentials to be a therapist, for them to say that, I think is preposterous. You're not self-medicating, you're a drunk. It's what it is, right? I mean, that's plain and simple. And so when we start to realize that, no, this isn't medicine, it's not something to help us sleep, it's not something to help with anxiety, it does have some of those properties, but so does relaxing for 15 minutes. So does listening to a talk for 15 minutes, right? A lot of you guys listen to us religiously, and maybe it makes you relax a little bit or changes your mind. And one of the things that I learned in rehab was that the mind is like a lens, and you get what you focus on. And if you're focusing on, oh, hey, this alcohol is going to help me, then that is a big, big, big eye-opener. Case in point, when I was drinking, I went to lunch one time because I would work, and I worked at home, so I had to get out. And I'd go out, and I'd get my drinks, and I'd have my lunch, and by myself, I'd take notes and kind of, relax or whatever. And I remember one time I was really, really anxious. I was so anxious I couldn't sit still. And I was sitting in the bar area, which is more anxiety provoking because they always have that like up high tables where it's like, I don't want everyone looking at me, but apparently that's what they have. And so I'm sitting there, and I noticed that as soon as the bartender comes around the corner with my drink, as soon as I saw that, I started getting more calm. I hadn't taken a sip all day. And I saw it, and I got calm, which means the calmness, the relaxation, and the ability to sleep soundly is in me, not the alcohol. So it's something the alcohol is doing to me, much like allergies, right? You have allergies, and I have allergies sometimes. They've gotten better over the years. But when I had them really, really, really bad, I would get mad because my body is overreacting to something that's not really a threat. That's why you get allergies, is an overreaction to something that is harmless, right? You're like, hey, why is my body flipping out about this? Dandelion or whatever it is. And when I had allergies really bad, I learned that it was a false response. Somewhere your wires got crossed. And alcohol is the same way, right? There's a response that your body is giving to the alcohol. Like when you throw up because you drink too much, that's not necessarily the alcohol making you do it. It's your body saying, get this the hell out of my body. We're going to get rid of it. That is a response. You don't have to drink to have that response. That response is in your body anyway. You don't have to drink to have the calm response. That is in your body anyway. It is your body producing and your mind producing this stuff in relation to what's happening, much like the allergies, where my mind and my body are producing these things that kind of make no sense. It's like, why? We're not threatened by a dandelion, but my body's freaking out, my eyes are watering because of this dandelion, and that is something that's in my body anyway. It's in there anyway. And I would venture to say that with many alcoholics, myself included, those responses are there. I have learned how to get all the stuff I got from alcohol without alcohol. I can relax. I can have a good time. I can loosen up. I can go to sleep when I want to. And when you learn that this is all stuff your body can do anyway, then there you go. And case in point, I'll tell you a funny story. I grew up in many weird churches. One of them they just made a gigantic movie about, and I was a preacher with that church for a couple of years when I was younger. And some of these churches would have these filled with the Spirit anointing nights, right? And you'd go there and everyone would act like weird, and they'd say, oh, the Holy Spirit's here, hallelujah, and people would be falling over, and people would be dancing in the aisles and running around with tambourines, and it was much like my experience at the loony bin, right, or the mental hospital. And so this would happen, and they had this thing called Drunk in the Spirit. I kid you not. You just look at it on the YouTube one time when you're bored. And they have this thing called Drunk in the Holy Spirit, and people would act like they're drunk, and they'd believe it. And they were falling over, they couldn't walk a straight line, they were slurring their words, and they hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. So how is it that my body is able to produce this? Interesting, right? So we start to realize that all the stuff that we attributed to alcohol is our body's response to alcohol rather than the alcohol itself. And I think it's interesting because, you look at this and it's like, okay, when it's chemically induced, there's no way out. When you're an alcoholic, there's no way out other than to go to the doctor, detox, and get sober. It's dangerous. But then once you realize that all these things, I can be calm without alcohol. I can have a good time without alcohol. I can do all this stuff. It's an interesting thing. So I think for me, yes, that completely resonates with me.
Absolutely. It looks like what we're talking about is resonating with a lot of people. A lot of great comments. Thank you so much for all of them. And, just a quick note on the sleep. If you're fairly new in sobriety, you probably are not experiencing good sleep. And you just got to hang in there. Try to take naps when you can. When you're tired, just rest, even if you're not sleeping. But it will get better. Sleep does get better. It took me a few months for my sleep to start to normalize, and eventually I was able to get there. Obviously there's tricks like try to go to bed at the same time every night, try to wake up at the same time every morning. Other little things, don't drink coffee late, all that stuff. But yeah, it will get better. And Bonnie made a little comment here, and that she had graduated from an outpatient program, and that life is great now. And I'm going to make that the two and a half. We'll make this a 2.5 lie that we tell ourselves, and that's that we don't need help. And it's an important thing is to get help. Yeah. I learned my sobriety from other people. I learned it from other sober alcoholics. I went to rehab. I did doctors. I went to an outpatient with the hospital. I learned how to stay sober from other people. I got help. Marcus was the same way. He did a lot of reading, a lot of talks that he listened to. He went to rehab, and he did a lot of research to learn. getting help is super important in getting sober, and thinking that you can do it without, yeah, maybe there's a couple people that are successful in not drinking anymore in their life, but is that real sobriety? For me, sobriety is a lot more than just not drinking. It's learning how to live that life, and I had to learn that, and I actually had to have people kind of tell me what to do to get there. That's what our program talks about. But let me get into the third one, and you guys might relate to this too, and that's that my problems are caused by others, not by alcohol. And this is a really difficult one to really quantify while you're drinking, because at least for me, when I was drinking, problems would come up. I wouldn't be able to deal with them. They'd get worse, or there'd be a multiple amount of problems that were happening to me. And I just would blame it on the situation or the person. That's a big one, is blaming the other person as to your problems. My family, they drink. My family does this. This guy at work did this to me. I remember one particular thing is, I ended up quitting a job while I was drinking. And the job was really difficult. And don't get me wrong, this was a difficult job. But I was drinking. I was drunk most of the time in my daily life. And I think I probably would have been quite a bit more productive if I wasn't drunk. And I would have been better, I'd have better relationships at work if I wasn't drinking, because I wouldn't be trying to hide the fact that I was drinking. And that's a big one. And maybe my case is a little extreme. Maybe you're a drinker and you don't drink at work and you don't drink and drive and all that, and you don't have the problems that many alcoholics end up having. But what usually happens is it gets to that point. A lot of people don't quit until they get to that point. Why wait until that point? And, I was blaming all these problems on other people. The work problems was because I had too much work. I have to bring my work home. Well, no, maybe if I was able to apply myself at work, I would have gotten the stuff done. And I probably would have been happier if I wasn't drunk all the time. And I would have gotten along with people. My relationships would have been better. I would have been more productive. And maybe I wouldn't have had to quit that job. Although I am glad I left. But that's a different video. But that's at least what my case was, what I see very often. In fact, what I see very often is when people are sober, they're still blaming other people for their problems. And yes, we do get problems caused by other people. Yes, it happens. But what part do I have in this situation? And what can I do to either rectify this situation or get away from it? And sometimes we just have to deal with it and accept it for what has happened. Not accept it as far as, yeah, that's okay, but accept that this happened and move forward in life and just let it go. And that's what I found. And Marcus, did you ever blame any of your problems?
Oh, never. I always took personal, of course. This was one that, I learned the hard way that you could either be a victim or you can enjoy life. And when I was drinking, I was a victim of everything. I literally, back then, I was a staunch Republican. Now I'm completely indifferent towards politics. I got my own views, which are interesting, but they're completely different than I had before. And, when I was drinking, I thought that my financial problems caused by my drinking and not working were because of taxes. And I literally thought, Obama wants to get my money, because he was the president back then when I got sober. And I thought he literally wanted my money, as if they sat around in the White House worrying about my piddly little IRS check. And I would blame everything. Everything was my wife's fault. Everything was the fault of society. Everything was against me. I couldn't just drink normally. I was a victim of my own body. I was a victim of my own brain. I was a victim of this, a victim of that. And there is a time and place to be a victim, right? If you were a victim of alcohol, of course, there's a time and place to deal with that, but not when you're drunk, right? Once you get sober, then deal with that stuff. And I had to learn the hard way, because I would argue with you till I was blue in the face about my views, because I was right. And then later, when I got sober, I figured out I was actually wrong. And then I had to realize, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And I start to look at everything as I am a victim of everything. And I would blame everyone for my problems. If this person didn't yell at me all the time, I wouldn't need to drink. If everyone did what I said, the world would be a better place. Well, last I checked, nobody elected me the ruler of the world. I used to think that, life was happening to me. This is happening to me. I remember one time when I was drinking and my grandpa was in the hospital and he was, he was on his way out. I think he was alive another week after that. And I was drinking and I drank the whole trip, which I feel bad for because, I wish I was sober for that. And I remember thinking, how much more bad stuff could happen to me? And then when I got sober, I was like, well, people get old and that is the natural progression of life. That's why it's not happening to me. Every single day, I think it's 140 something thousand people pass away. I just happen to be in the line of one of them. And we realize that the world and all of life is not happening to you. It's happening, and you're part of it. And I'll never forget one day, my dad was a big businessman, and he loved business. And he'd say great things sometimes, and sometimes he'd say things that were like, hey, are you sure about that? And I remember one time we had this friend that was from Arkansas, and he struggled throughout school and stuff like that. And he wasn't very intellectual of a guy. Great person, he just wasn't super intellectual. And one time my dad was trying to give us all a lecture about business and life. And he said, oh, people like me in business make the world go round. And this guy, who we always knew was kind of like, he was different. He thought differently. And he was like, well, okay, why don't you make it stop then? And I thought about that for a minute. And I'm like, okay, the things that we tell ourselves about how important we are and how we are don't really matter, and they're not really real. A lie that we tell ourselves is that we are super important. And it's like, yeah, I'm super important just like 8 billion other people on the planet. If I stop doing what I'm doing, the world still turns, as the wisdom of our friend back then said. The world still turns. You are part of what's going on. It's not happening to you. Things don't happen to you. Things happen, and you're in life. You're part of it, and we start to realize that, one of the things that baffled me, I love philosophy and I love thinking about stuff. And I remember back when I first started getting sober, I hadn't yet changed my views on religion, and I was still, very, oh, there's a God and stuff like that. And now I don't know where I'm at, and it doesn't really matter to me. But I would look at it and be like, oh, well, what is God's thought life like? I mean, you literally have this globe, and on one corner, there could be devastation and war and famine. And in the other corner, there's people that are, eating $5,000 a plate meals on private jets. And then in another corner, there's people that are religious. And another one, there's people that are not. And we start to pan out and realize the world is a lot bigger than our problems. And the world is a lot bigger than our situation and what we think is happening to us. When you think that you're a victim and you feel like things are happening to you and the world is out to get you, it's a very dangerous place to be. When I was there, I was unhappy, I was miserable, I was always fighting. And then when I realized that it's about joining the life or the dance that life is. Join in the dance, it's happening. Guys, there's things happening that are good and bad. We just happen to focus on a lot of the bad. And if we focus on the good, I remember that story when my grandpa was passing. I remember thinking, oh, he was taken from us. My grandpa was taken from us. No, he was given to us. He was given to the world for 86 years, I think it was, or 83 years. And we look at that and it's like, wait, I'm sitting here mourning one little instance when I have all this good to look at. And when my dad passed, it was completely different because I was like, wait, we got him. It's a blessing. And I was able to enjoy the time. His last couple months I was able to enjoy because I was like, hey, this is a gift. I'm not going to sit here and mourn what's going to happen because that happens to everyone. It's not just happening to me. This happens. People come, people go. Life happens, and it's very important.
Yes, indeed. Um, and when one thing when I got sober, one of the first things I learned was to let go of all those problems. Yes, I've got problems. Yes, I need to deal with them, but slow down. Take care of one thing at a time. If I can't take care of it today, what can I do? And just do what I can do. That's all I can do. And that's what I really tried to do. Siegel was mentioning, was it Siegel that likes the dandelion tea? I have some dandelion tea. Actually, dandelion tea is pretty good. It's not that I drink it very often, though. I usually end up drinking coffee. That's my one thing. But, anyways, on to number 4. This is one I hear often. I was definitely this way until I wasn't that way, and I realized I wasn't that way, and that's that I'm not that bad. Am I really an alcoholic? I'm not like that guy. I don't drink like that. I've seen a lot of people and talked to a lot of people that did not have a lot of the consequences that I had or that many other people have had. They didn't get into legal problems. They didn't get into the relationship problems, or maybe they did and they didn't realize it so much. But they didn't have a lot of those issues that many people that have problems with alcohol have. And it's actually, for them, it's almost more difficult to realize that they need to stop because they aren't having the consequences, but at least those outward societal consequences that other people might see. Maybe they're feeling the consequences, and that's a tough one. But you know, that's another one of those lies, is that I'm not as bad as that guy. Well, it really depends, and for most of us, we do end up with consequences, and it's really looking deep down inside, whether it's those external consequences or the internal ones, where I'm just not feeling right anymore because I drink too much or something like that. It's something that you really have to look at and take a deep look to see if you are having if things are going bad. For me, things were bad on the outside and they were worse on the inside. And but at the same time, I would see other people. And I didn't really notice this until I was actually in the rooms, the 12-step rooms, that there's a lot of people that had it a lot worse than me. There's also a lot of people that didn't, although I didn't really focus on them. I focused on these people that had it a lot worse than me. And I would say to myself, I'm not as bad as that guy, and I did end up drinking again. And that was one of those lies that I told myself, is I'm not that bad. And then I'd go back to that first one that I mentioned, is I can stop anytime. Why don't I just have a drink? And that was a tough one to get through. And you know, it was difficult for me. Like for Marcus talks a lot about how he wasn't that bad. He still had a successful business. And me, I held my job until I quit, but I was able to get a job. And I can get a job tomorrow, but I don't want to right now. And that was one of those lies that I was telling myself. I wasn't employable. There was no way. I couldn't go get a job. I couldn't sit through an interview. I couldn't sober up for a minute. So that's a tough one. So I'm going to move on to number 5, the last one. And that's, I kind of already alluded to this already, but that's that life is going to be worse without alcohol. And this is a tough one, and you don't even realize it until you've gotten sober. And then you don't even realize it until, you've been sober for a little while, that life is a lot better without alcohol. For me, alcohol, it ruled my life. If I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about the drink. I was thinking about how I needed to make sure I didn't run out of the drink. I was thinking about what event can I go to have fun while drinking. I was thinking of, is there going to be alcohol at the event? Do I need to bring it? Alcohol was part of every thought that I had. And nowadays it's not. And this is one thing that we really try to focus on in our program, is that not just the not drinking, but learning to build this life where alcohol is not a factor. Alcohol is not a factor for me anymore. I don't have to fight it. I don't, and you know, yes, I have to work on my sobriety here, but it doesn't dominate my life. I'm not thinking, oh, I can't have this drink or da 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 da. Yes, I know I can't have the drink. I know I can't have alcohol, but it doesn't dominate me, and that's because life is so much better. I'm able to do anything I want now. I'm free from that crutch that alcohol had, and that's a big one for me. So yeah, that's those are our 5 things that we have, and I just want to congratulate all of you that have sobriety. Any of you that are fighting your sobriety right now, you can get sober. You can do it. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy for some, not so easy for others. Is actually what I should say.
Well, and I think I forgot to put my microphone back on after I got more coffee. That's what I think. I
It still
think,
hurt you.
yeah, I think, is it simple? Yeah. Easy? No. The
Right.
strategy is simple. I mean, if you want to quit drinking, just quit drinking. Just don't ever drink again. Now, is that easy? No. No, I think it's very difficult. But I think if you start to understand how your mind works and how life works and change your philosophy of life, I think that's where everything starts to change. And when you look at that, I mean, I remember plain as day what it was like thinking about, do I have enough alcohol? Am I going to have enough alcohol? Is there going to be alcohol there? Do I need to bring my own? Do I have enough to make it through the night? Can I skip out on this event, go drink, and come back to the event without anyone knowing? Or, I was like the guy who had to wait at every intermission at every play we went to get alcohol, or whatever it was. Or, the guy that I would bring it in my car. Like, I didn't care about laws back then. I cared about being drunk. That's what I cared about. And I would do all kinds of things. Luckily, I didn't drive. Someone else drove around. And, I look at that and it's like, man, what not a way to live. And that's what we talk about in our course over at talksober.com. If you go over to talksober.com, right like this, you can click the big yellow button. Now, there's lots of things you can see at talksober.com. The yellow button is what's going to get you into our sobriety recovery class, which is going to talk to you about the mindset. It's going to talk to you about a new type of life philosophy. It's going to talk about all kinds of things, and all you got to do is fill this out. It's less than $1 a day, and it helps support what we're doing here on the channel. Now, also, I would say, maybe bookmark talksober.com or make it your home screen, because there's lots of good stuff that you can get there, including our sobriety call with me and Terry, where you can get that. Our Talk Sober live show, where you can always get links to our live shows if you can't find them on YouTube. You can download some letters from me, which is what our course is made up of. I'm actually having someone proofread the book very soon, and we will get that out as well. We also have our Facebook group, where you can talk to other people who are in the Talk Sober family. And then if you need help and support and logins, you can see that there too. And then all kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of stuff that you can check out there. And all you got to do is fill that out, click the yellow button, fill it out, and you will be part of our group there. And we can help you with that. Now, again, me and Terry are not doctors, so don't expect this to be some medical program. It's just about the mindset. If you're detoxing, always, always, always go to the doctor, because detoxing is dangerous.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Any last minute words there?
Well, try not to lie to yourself. For me, the biggest key when I got sober was honesty. And it was honesty in every part of my life, as honest as I could be. We make mistakes. Sometimes we're going to tell those little white lies, but try to stay out of the lie circle. It just makes life more and more difficult. Very often it drives us back to a drink. And for me, just honesty was the first thing I told myself when I finally got sober is, okay, yay. I may have broken down my life into almost nothing, but now I'm starting from scratch, and I can be honest from this day forward. And that's one of the benchmarks of my sobriety is just honesty and honesty with myself. And that's been a big factor in my staying sober, is trying to be honest with myself. And I think self-honesty is one of the more difficult ones, because we want to feel good.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for being here. Check out talksober.com. Click that yellow button if you want to join us and get, I think there's like 31 MP3s, PDFs, videos, all kinds of stuff to go through a 30-day plan, whether you're sober today, whether you've been sober for years, whether you're trying to feel this new world of sobriety out. I think it's got something for everyone because it talks about our journey and the things that we learned along the way. And I think it'll help you with your journey as well. So thanks for being here.